Good evening, everyone. It is time for the special Community Development Committee meeting for August 16, 2021. It is currently 5:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Chairman Rivera.
Present.
Alderman Moiseo.
I'm here.
Alderman Hayes. Alderman Florian.
Present.
Alderman Turner.
He is on his way.
Alderman Turner.
Thank you. Number two, audience time. Do we have any comments for audience time?
Batman's here.
Breaking news.
Yes, you do. You have one that was sent in by Brandon Ewing of the Waukegan Public Schools. Would you like to read it, ma'am?
I can. Are you going to get the signature?
While you read it.
Shall I, Mr. Chairman?
Do we want to hold that as it's, should be part of the record for the public hearing after we've opened it?
Oh, sure. You want to do it that way?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think because it's pertinent to
As
the public hearing.
public
let's
hearing
hold- let's
comment
hold that
rather
one
than-
to the-
Okay.
Okay, so the audience time item will be held over for new business. And moving right along, then number three, we have old business, which we have none. Number four is new business, public hearing concerning an amendment to the Waukegan/North Chicago Enterprise Zone. The Community Development Committee will be conducting a public hearing on the Waukegan/North Chicago Enterprise Zone at 5 p.m. by the City of Waukegan Community Development Committee. The purpose of the public hearing is to present information and take testimony on the question of the Waukegan/North Chicago Enterprise Zone's proposed amendment to add new territory to the current boundaries of the Enterprise Zone.
Okay.
Okay.
So, could you formally call the public hearing open, please?
Oh, okay. Are there any public comments?
Well, we'll open the public hearing. I'll give us a brief presentation, then we'll call for public comments on this.
Okay.
So,
I am calling the public hearing to order at 5:04.
hello, City Council, Stuart Weiss, Corporation Council. I'm going to give a very brief presentation tonight on why this public hearing is necessary and what it's trying to accomplish. On July 6th, the Council approved the execution of a number of agreements authorizing the lease of a portion of the Yeoman Creek Landfill Superfund site to allow for the construction and operation of a 9.1 megawatt solar photovoltaic power generation facility. The lease is with BQ Energy, which is a vendor that the Yeoman Creek Remediation Group has selected to develop this power generation facility on the capped landfill. One of the key aspects that makes this project feasible is the ability of the city to include the site of the Yeoman Creek landfill that will be subject to this project within an enterprise zone.
Can we seat Alderman Hayes?
Absolutely.
I make a motion that we seat Alderman Hayes.
Thank you. Second to the motion? I'll second it. Okay, thank you. We are currently seating Alderman Hayes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Stu.
Oh, no problem. In 2005, Waukegan partnered with the City of North Chicago to create the Waukegan North Chicago Enterprise Zone. This is an enterprise zone that crosses the boundaries of both communities. Properties that have been included in it can take advantage of certain tax incentives. It is a very important economic development tool, and of course that goes out right when I was about to reference it. Yeah, but I'm not going to tell you my password, so excuse me while I go turn back on my visual aid.
I just want to clarify that last motion to seat Alderman Hayes was made by Alderman Florian, seconded by Alderman Newsom. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Enterprise zones are capped at a certain amount of acreage. And so basically the goal when amending an enterprise zone to add properties into it is to be very judicious and make sure that we are including only properties that are going to create significant economic development. This property and this project will be a significant economic driver for the simple benefit that it is actually going to offset a lot of the remediation costs that are involved. The city, along with the school district and a number of other partners in the Yeoman Creek remediation group, are responsible for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year in remediation cost of active management of this site. We expect that to change as the site is transitioned to a passive management landfill with the EPA's approval, but nonetheless, the ability to lease this land, generate power locally, and receive revenue from what has really been a cost to all these community and taxing districts is a very important initiative. So what we're talking about today and what the public hearing is to add the area that is detailed in yellow right here on this map to the enterprise zone. Now what we don't want to do is we don't want to overcapture. We don't want to include too many properties in there. We don't want to include residential properties in there if we can help it. There are a few that will get captured, but basically the idea is that we are tagging in this area so the project can take advantage of these incentives without removing the option of including other properties that may need economic development in the future. So that's why it is kind of this almost looks like a kind of a key, like an old skeleton key shape. This public hearing is being conducted pursuant to published notice that was published in the Lake County News Sun on August 7th in accordance with the requirements of the Illinois Enterprise Zone Act. And we've included on board docs and on the publicly available site the enterprise zone, basically adds to the legal description of the enterprise zone, and also amends the intergovernmental agreement with North Chicago that was established back when the enterprise zone was first adopted. They're parallel documents, and the change is exactly the same to both of them. We're adding this territory, the legal description of it. So that is kind of the meat and potatoes of this. We only have to conduct, even though this is an enterprise zone that spans both communities, only one public hearing is required. We're conducting it here tonight. North Chicago will also be reviewing the documents that I presented to you in one of their committees and putting these up for final approval of their city council on the 7th, which is the same night that we would be presenting this to the full city council. Before we go on to the public comment portion of the public hearing, are there any questions or that I can, yes, sir, Alderman Turner.
And hearing in the mic.
Thank you for reminding me, and thank you, Stu, for an excellent presentation. Just for clarification to the public and me,
Yeah.
what is an enterprise zone and why is it necessary?
Right. So I'm going to answer the first part, and then we have a speaker here tonight from the actual BQ Energy, which is doing the project, which can, I think, more competently explain why it's important to them. An enterprise zone is a creation of, it's a creation by federal law. There are federal enterprise zones. There's also the Illinois Enterprise Zone Act. And what it allows, it basically creates designated zones that are determined to be in a, it's not the same kind of blight determination you use for a TIF, but you look at areas that have had declining property values, declining economic returns, and by basically putting these into an enterprise zones, you make them eligible for a number of tax incentives, both at the state and federal level. How that impacts the BQ Energy project, I think we have an attorney for them that can talk about that a little bit more competently.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. I hear you say this is a tax incentive, but what would this cost our taxpayers? What is the incentive? Clarify.
It is not, there are no tax incentives on the local level. There are tax credits and incentives that can be applied for at the federal and state level. It does not impact the equalized assessed value of this property. It does not impact the tax base of the city, and especially because right now this property is a capped landfill, it is not generating any tax revenue.
Now,
Any
I
other
couldn't see
questions?
the map from this distance. What's the streets, the zone area again?
Yeah, Noel, I'm going to rely on you, and I lost my visual, but I'm going to rely on Noel to give the walking tour.
Sure. It includes the Yeoman Creek landfill site. So the northern boundary is Sunset Avenue. The southern boundary is Glen Flora. The western boundary is Lewis. And the eastern boundary is the bike path that's just west of and adjacent to Western Avenue. It's all a jagged boundary within that area, but those are the perimeter streets and bike path, if that's helpful. I also have a printed map that I can share with you if you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are two of them
Good
here.
seeing you.
So do you want to pass that down, would you please?
So, Noel, how many wards does that take in?
2, 6 and 5.
It takes in several.
I think it's parts of 2, but 6 and 7.
6 and
That's
7?
what I thought, but I didn't.
Yeah, I don't think 7 goes Gulf, Sunset, and North.
Okay, there's nothing south.
Yeah, there is, that small strip.
That's Western.
And one important fact is that when you add to an enterprise zone, it does have to be contiguous, which is why we've had to kind of extend it. If I zoom out, you can see how all the different additions basically have to be kind of this, well, you'll see when I zoom
Yes,
out.
and thank you for that. I should mention that it connects, it follows Greenwood Avenue to the east and connects there. So that part's 7th and the bulk of it 6th ward, am I correct?
Yep.
So that, and one of the paper maps is this visual. So that is the original enterprise zone in green and purple. The green part is Waukegan, the purple part or blue part is North Chicago. Then there are several amendments that have been done. The far western light blue is the bridge connection in Waukegan. The red to the south is in North Chicago. It was one of their amendments. The orange to the south is the Rosalind Franklin Amendment. That was the last amendment that was done by North Chicago in 2017. Then north of the green, the red is the Midwest Generation Amendment, the purple is the Vista Medical Amendment, and then the yellow is this proposed amendment. So you can see they all have connectors to various parts of the original zones. So as Stu stated, we're trying to take in as little property as is appropriate, not include residential if we can keep it out. So there are a few residential properties along the way to keep the line straight. But we really made efforts to only include properties that were appropriate to be in the enterprise zone.
Question by Alderman Florian.
So along, is that Greenwood? What road is it that's
Greenwood is the connection there, yes.
Okay, so are all the houses on either side included or just the road?
It's the road and the properties on both sides of the street.
But residential homes cannot take advantage
Right.
of the tax incentives that are there because they would not be job creating. So it doesn't, it basically is just an overlay that doesn't impact the actual properties themselves. The only downside to us is that we have a certain, is it 12, how many acres? Is it 12 acres?
12 acres total.
12 acres, so we have 12 acres combined to play with. The only downside is
12 square miles, I'm sorry.
12 square miles, yes, 12 square miles. The only downside is that by including those, it doesn't impact the houses. It just takes away from that kind of bank of 12 square miles that we have that, you know, and that's why the connection is so skinny.
So we have 12 square miles left after this, or?
12 square miles total. That is enterprise zones, and in this case, it is split between North Chicago and Waukegan.
That looks like a lot more than 12 square miles to me. I mean, that's most of the green is almost all of Waukegan.
You can see that there are areas that are cut out, and this is something that the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity looks at very hard. We worked with Kane McKenna, which is our economic development consultant, and they went literally line by line, parcel by parcel, to make sure that we're not tripping over that limit.
So what are we at now if we add this?
I have to verify the final calculation. I think it was just under 11.
Okay, so we're pretty much done.
Yeah, we went into it thinking that we would have to cut back on the original zone, and there are places we can do that, but it would have complicated the process even further than it was. So since we were still within the cap and North Chicago didn't object, we left it alone. But if there is another amendment at some point for either community to add, there's a decent likelihood that we'll have to cut back somewhere. But there are residential areas in the original green zone that we don't need to have included. There was just, when it was originally created, my understanding is that there was an effort to keep the line straight on streets as much as possible.
We could amend what's already here down the road if we needed to.
Sure.
Okay.
We could put it on a diet, yeah.
It's an easier approval process, as I understand it, to add new area than to remove area that's already in, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So
All right.
it would be appropriate now to open up for public comment.
Public comment, correct.
Do we want to have comment first from the people who are here? in
I
case
would
they
say
need to
so.
go?
Yes.
Okay. Or I can read this one while the city clerk gets the others. Okay, we have a comment from Waukegan Public Schools addressed to the Honorable Mayor Ann B. Taylor and City Council members at the City Hall address dated August 11th in support of inclusion of Yeoman Creek landfill in the enterprise zone. I'm sorry, in enterprise zoning. Madam Mayor and ladies and gentlemen, this letter is in support of the amendment of the current enterprise zone of Waukegan, North Chicago to include the Yeoman Creek landfill surplus site in Waukegan, Illinois. The change in the zone is beneficial to the community. The Waukegan Community Unit School District 60 is an owner of the property slated for the zone on which a community solar project will be sited. We look forward to the project being constructed and providing the opportunity to obtain solar to residents of Waukegan and North Chicago, as well as reducing costs of the Yeoman for the schools. Enabling enterprise zoning will benefit the community by allowing area low-income residents to be able to secure reduced price power from a solar-powered facility. Giving individuals and environmental justice communities access to solar allows them to be part of the fight for clean energy. This focus is based on the principle that all people should be protected from pollution and that all populations have a right to a clean and healthy environment. The Waukegan Solar Project is in an appropriate community and adds to the overall environmental benefit by putting a remediated Superfund site back to a productive use, generating locally sourced clean energy. We are also pleased that Waukegan area institutional customers that are not-for-profit or public agencies would also be able to obtain discounts for their electricity through this program. Obviously, our school community welcomes such positive opportunities for our local families. BQ Energy LLC has been diligent and determined in their pursuit of solar for the Yeoman Creek landfill site, and we anticipate broad community support for finalization of the project. We have worked with BQ and the city in the years-long effort to achieve this turnaround of Yeoman Creek landfill into an asset for the community, and we strongly support taking this important step in the process. Sincerely, Brandon Ewing, Board President, Waukegan Community School District Number 60.
Great, thank you. Now we have the list.
We do.
I'm sorry, could I ask Alderman, could you pass the map this way so the alderman on the other side could see it as well?
No, this.
Are you going to call them up?
Oh, all right. The first speaker we have is David Stryker. Thank you.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Alderman, and thank you to the members of the City Council that are here tonight. My name is David Stryker. I'm counsel to BQ Energy, the developer, and it's good to be back before Waukegan. In a prior life, I used to be the general counsel of the Illinois Department of Commerce. So, Alderman Turner, I'll try and work in some answers to your questions because, as the Corporation Counsel mentioned, Department of Commerce runs the Enterprise Zone program, so I've had about 18 years of familiarity and experience with it. but I'm happy to be able to speak with you tonight. As you know, my client BQ hopes to invest over $10 million in the area, and as the school district so rightly put it, to bring a Superfund site back to life with economic activity, and back to life by putting it back on the tax rolls, which I know are very important, and also back to life by creating a renewable power that will be available at hopefully discounted prices to area customers. And let me talk a little bit about solar and why the enterprise zone designation is so important to us. One of the things, and as you know, a lot of the key industrial areas in your area, whether it's Waukegan or North Chicago or within the zone, enterprise zone is a great tool. I think that the program was established in 1983, and I also believe that the Waukegan North Chicago enterprise zone probably dates back originally to 1984 before it was renewed. And as the Corporation Council mentioned, the original impetus of that was an area that it's in need of economic development and support. One of the great things about the enterprise zone is it is locally controlled, in this case by the city of Waukegan and North Chicago, but also, as the Corporation Council mentioned, the key incentive, and it's really only one incentive that we're looking for, the sales and use tax exemption on building materials. It's primarily state revenue that is being given up, but still remains locally controlled. And one of the things that we, and I'm talking we when I used to be at DCO, always look to, that I'm sure is a key criteria for you all, is that we want to be using those incentives as a leveler of the playing field, recognizing that Illinois at times is more expensive than its neighbors. This is one of those times where if the project was being developed in Wisconsin, Missouri, Indiana, or other neighbors of Illinois, there is a standard manufacturing equipment and machinery sales and use tax exemption that would apply. Interestingly, Illinois does not recognize electricity generation as a manufacturing activity, and by not doing that, it has had the effect of driving all power generation projects, whether it's coal, gas, originally wind, and now solar, into enterprise zones. So as the Corporation Council and Noel mentioned, this enterprise zone designation, it is a key enabler for us to level the playing field and allow this project to go forward. If we did not have the enterprise zone designation, as you can imagine, a lot of our components will be coming in from areas outside of North Chicago and Waukegan. It would essentially have the effect of making our project 6.25% more expensive. And that's why we've spent over a year with Noel, I, and my client working together on this in conjunction with Russ and the city of North Chicago. So we really greatly appreciate your support and designation, hopefully, of this enterprise zone, because it really is a key enabler for this project, as it has been a key enabler for a number of your crucial economic development projects in the past, and I'm sure it will be highly important for whatever reuse aspects are looked at the Waukegan plant as NRG turns that over. One of the questions I might add is that solar in Illinois, the valuation for property tax is done through a state formula. So while the project may be going on tax-exempt land that's owned by the school, we do expect the project will put this property back not only into economic reuse, but also back on the property tax rolls.
I don't understand how it's going to go back on the property tax rolls. City of Waukegan owns it. We're going to lease it to the school district. Neither of them are, we don't pay taxes to ourselves. They don't pay tax.
Correct. We expect it, there is a state statutory formula. I'm happy to pass that on through the Corporation Council. What it says is that solar is valued at $218,000 per megawatt. So there's a multiplier effect that goes in there. And we have spent a lot of time working with the outside counsel for the school districts, and we do believe that this project would be subject to property tax based on the state's statutory formula.
So who would pay that tax?
It would be the developer, my client.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, sir, you know, even if we had leased the property from the school district, while the underlying property would be tax exempt, we would expect that lease to be taxed.
Understood.
So it's in that mechanism that we not only expect it to be taxed, but since the state statutory formula exists, we have a very good idea, upwards of, you know, almost to the penny on what the tax liability is going to be.
Thank you.
So with that, we do expect it to create approximately 30 to 40 construction jobs, and that this enterprise zone designation is the last piece to fall in place before we sign our site lease and hopefully move forward with the project. I'm happy to answer any questions that the chairman's.
Are there any questions for Mr. Stryker? None? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you again.
The next comment will be from Ray Vukovich.
Good evening. Yeoman Creek Landfill. It's the gift to Waukegan that keeps taking. 50, 60 years, and will continue for a long time. So this is a great project, and putting this in the enterprise zone is very beneficial to all parties involved. And I'm very familiar with the enterprise zone. Along with Noel, we were staff back in 2006 when it was first created. The very last enterprise zone of the original group. It was through the work of the late Eddie Washington as a state representative. It was just looking at the dates there, it was June of '09 that it was signed. I believe he passed away that month or the next month. So, you know, he was very instrumental in getting that through. But it's a tool that other communities would die for. Just in this case here, they mentioned the savings there, but I know that other facilities have come in to there have been the 3 amendments in Waukegan. And it's one thing that I have to encourage you all to do. I'm involved in the Illinois Enterprise Zone Association, and they keep stressing that it's very important that you keep your maps up. Now, the map that's shown here is not the map that's on the city website. The city website shows the original back to 2006. When you go to the Department of Commerce website, that only shows 2 of the 3 amendments. And it's imperative that the city keep that up, because there are developers that they look for that, and if they see a piece of property and they don't think it's in it, they just keep going down the street till they can find a piece of property that's in it. So I think this is a great thing, and good for Waukegan.
Thank you, Ray. And we'll definitely get that updated as far as the maps on our website. The next speaker is Thomas Morris.
Hello, Councilman and Council ladies. Tom Morris, I'm former General Counsel at Waukegan Public Schools, so you may remember me or recognize me from that. They brought me out of the bullpen tonight to just address some of the questions or background. I've been around this problem since 1992. And we kind of fought hard to make sure that this project would not be a permanent eyesore for the city of Waukegan. There were those who wanted to put a fence around it and some warning markers and make it a liability. And I think this project, as envisioned by BQ, will be ultimately an asset. So we want to speak first to the fact that the board has consistently supported and in its record ratified the lease as proposed and represented. So we're in complete accord with Mr. Ewing's comments. They accurately represent the viewpoint of the board, past and current. I'm not here to speak about the actual amendment. That was handled by Mr. Weiss, Mr. Sheldon, a former partner of ours, and mostly by the city, who ably took us through the process of creating the enterprise zone. I want to speak to you, Mr. Turner, that when a public property is rented by a public entity to a private entity for rental income, the assessor can put it on the tax rolls, and therefore that will inure to the advantage in terms of generating taxes or equivalent of. The other aspects, as outlined by Mr. Ewing, are completely correct and just need to be reaffirmed. The benefits there will be benefits in terms of the regular cash calls that will be reduced. We have to pay for insurance, we have to pay for maintenance, from lawn mowing to any leakage. All of that will be taken up by BQ. I'm not sure it'll be as much as Mr. Weiss said, but there'll be significant savings because the tenant will be maintaining the landfill and reduce the cost of oversight. There'll be obviously the rental receipts, which have been outlined. which inure chiefly to the school district and the city. Although the other members of the Yeoman Creek Remediation Group will share in that as well. And finally, the benefits will inure to the benefit of the residents who will be able to acquire, low-income residents, that is, will be able to access power at reduced prices. So that's a big benefit in this community, and I think it's one that you should support, and we urge you to recommend this to the City Council. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I believe not. Thank you, Mr. Morris. Okay, and I believe that concludes the public comment portion of the public hearing. If we go on to number 5, reports and communication, we have none. Number 6 would be, okay,
We need to adjourn the public hearing within the committee meeting, right?
Yeah, so just a motion to close the public hearing would be appropriate. You can do that via a voice vote.
may I have a motion by Alderman Lynn Florian, seconded by Alderman Hayes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That closes the public portion of the community development meeting.
Now we need a motion to adjourn.
Now we need a motion to adjourn.
Chairman, Alderman Rivera,
Yes, sir.
I just want to echo, I mean, anybody that's been on this council for any length of time understands what an albatross this has been for the city of Waukegan. And anything that's positive, which this obviously is much welcomed for the city and for its residents. I mean, this is like, as Mr. Vukovich says, it just keeps taking. I mean, every year we're up here, you see the dollar figures, we're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know, we talk about sins of the father, but that's for another time. But anything that generates anything positive on this site is much needed, and I'd like to thank everybody that worked on it to get this done. So, thank you.
Agreed. Thank you very much for your comment.
Chair, I did have
Yes, one more comment?
one more comment. The ordinances that were put in the packet today in the comment, you don't have to review those today, but they will be for consideration at the September 7th meeting. That's will be the same night that City of North Chicago adopts parallel amendments. The next step after both communities have done that, sign the amendment to the IGA, then we send it to DCEO. They approve it, and we get this project moving.
Great. All right, thank you very much. If there are no other comments, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting by Alderman Florian, seconded by Alderman Hayes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Thank you very much. That concludes our meeting at 5:39? 5:33.